Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about the different states of matter. And when you hear that term, states of matter, the word states doesn't mean California, Illinois, Florida. When we say states of matter, the word states is just a different way of saying the different types of matter. And we have three types. We have solid, liquid, and we have gas. All right, so we have three states of matter. All matter is made up of these tiny, tiny particles called molecules and atoms. All right, so these particles are arranged a certain way for solids, a certain way for liquids, and a third different way for gases. To kind of explain that, I want to show you this picture of this crowded classroom and all these boys and girls. And so we have this one classroom filled with all of these boys and girls crammed together, and they can move, right? They can move their arms and legs and move their head around, but they really can't move from one place to the other. They can't go from their spot to the other side of the room. They're just kind of stuck in their spot. This is an example of how the particles are arranged in a solid. So if we were to draw an example of that, and so we have this area, and if I drew particles as circles, the particles would be arranged like the boys and girls are. Really tightly packed so that they really can barely move, and that's how the particles are in a solid. They're really packed together, and they can just kind of move in one spot. They kind of just vibrate, right? That's a word that you might want to remember. They kind of just vibrate in one spot, and they don't travel from place to place. So those are the particles of a solid. This one is where you have a classroom, and there are far fewer people inside that classroom. So these people, they have enough room to actually get up and move around. They're not just stuck in one spot. If they wanted to, they can stand up and walk out the door. They can walk to one side of the room and the other side of the room, and without any interference with any of the other people. This is an example of the particles of a liquid. And so if we drew another example with the box, there would be fewer particles, and they wouldn't be as crammed together. All right, and they would have room to move. So that would be the particles of a liquid. The third type would look something like this. And so here we have this pretty much empty classroom with just two people in it. And this is how the particles are arranged in, whoops, I did it again, in a gas. All right, and so if we draw the picture again, we would only have maybe two particles in this big empty space, and so these particles could just move wherever they wanted. They'd be free to move around, and there's hardly any particles in that space, and that would be an example of how the particles are arranged in a gas. So to review, we have these three examples. We have the particles crammed together tightly. They only have room to kind of shake in one spot. That is the arrangement of particles of a solid. All right, this one, the particles have room to move around. They're not packed together. There are fewer of them, and this is an example of how the particles are arranged in a liquid. And then finally, this third example where the particles really have a lot of room, and there's just just a few particles in a given area. This is how the particles are arranged in a gas. So we have solid, liquid, gas, and remember we are talking about the three states of matter. Okay, thanks for watching and hope to see you on part 2.